what is suffering and what is the cause of suffering? A question from time immemorial. And when there is fear there, that question can be so accentuated, and one may falsely perceive that you need to cartwheel through hoops to access healing. But what if it's plain to see and that the answers and solutions are wonderfully simple and one can access them experientially through the simplest of shifts? So with my practice and spending time looking with this question and trying to find solutions for healing, becomes very clear to see that when it comes to structural and physical pains, there has been habits which we knowingly or unknowingly collapse into, drop into, wing into. And the thing is though, even when those are revealed or we have a sense of them, too often we haven't learned how to feel those patternings for ourselves, meaning it can be very clear why somebody is in pain structurally with the way that they're standing or dropping a line. But although they know they're in pain, or myself, I've known I'm in pain, and I can start to even see where it's pulling out, how do I guide that back in? And that becomes normal. That pain, discomfort, things that are disquiet and out of harmony, that is not the norm. Normal is harmony, balance, everything beautifully coherent, and how to cultivate back into that. Yeah. So in an essence, the same story goes and holds true from the physical body, the physical being, to the energetic being, the energy body. And when speaking energy, one would to speak just on a tangible, visceral level, you can even relate it to the neural and endocrine system, and levels of mind, thinking, patterning, and emotional reactions thereof. But how lovely that you can start with something very visual, visceral, feeling, tangible. And a good starting point is to see the actual structure. And when the structure has been misplaced, displaced, distorted through patterning, habits, and then the knock-on effect of that through all the different dimensions of being, but even just on a practical, when the outer structure is misaligned, the hard effect that has on the surrounding organs, glands, and all systems of the body. So from a yoga's perspective, when it comes to the physical practice, there are only, or at least the foundation with those yoga sutras, the key components discussed with the physical asana practice is that the postures must be steady and comfortable. And that steadiness is a key to iron out where things have gone off and where that discomfort is. And when it is steadied, there is comfort and ease. So on a literal point, and yoga puts huge emphasis on what is called the accessing and awakening and activation of the chakra points, which could be on a more overt level. Those are a more subtle energetic point, but on an outer, more overt level, the neural plexuses, when shown in medical imagery, those branches of nerves emulate the same beautiful imaginative images in those ancient books of the lotus flowers with the branches of petals. And those petals would be the branches drawing into the surrounding organs and glands and the surrounding limbs and structures thereof. Now, those need to be flowing clearly. So on a physical level, when one has a pinched nerve, they've very much pinched it their own self, meaning these branches of nerves running along the spinal cord, they need to be accessed, open and expansive. They need to be steadied. And when there has been through patterning and habit, a drop or a collapse in the pool, there's a compromise to that branch of nerves, and that will present in dissipating energy, lymph flow, blood flow, neural pulses to the surrounding organ glands and limbs. And what the body does intelligently and beautifully to try and bring you back into that optimal support of this incredible energetic network and the flow of the neural currents, endocrine system, it will create these very tight, intense patterning of bungee cords, whereby if I was skewed and distorted out to the side, and that would be compromising those branches of nerves, there will be such a tight bungee cord pulling on the inner groin, most likely hip flexors, the outer hip glute minimus, pushed out to the side, so that outer line is holding it most, ITB band issues, and then that will be putting the sacral plate, lower back out, and these tightenings are in essence my body trying to bring me back, to literally slingshot me back into optimal squared off alignment, whereby that spine and spinal cord is centered, it is elongated, and is supported by a steady base, a steady pelvis, a steady back, and so on and so forth, tracing up the line. And that steadiness will create such ease because we don't need to stretch this out. When I draw it back in and it's optimally aligned, the stretch receptors, knowing my nervous system is safe, those relax. They lessen that tightening within the muscles and the pulling within the bands. So drawing it back in, all of these patterns that were there to help me, they can relax and the body can access a comfortable, expansive flexibility, but so too, there is an optimal functioning of the organ systems, all 12 systems of the body, and a balancing of the different fascial lines. So steadiness literally creates the ease. And then the next point that is in the ancient text about what these practices will give is that when we're in it, we must focus on the infinite, and that is a great solution to overcoming being overly identified in something. So when we are caught within our pain patterning, and we're so immersed with it, we tie up so much of our identity with it, and that creates even more of a fear response. And fear, we know it's the same receptors as pain. So when the fear is there and we're overly pulled in identifying with it and that injury or that story, the experience of pain is heightened. And when we can give a bit more space and we can shift our perspective, the quality of the experience changes. And we can be much more clear in finding a solution to shift out of that cycle identity patterning behavior. And then finally, it says, and then once we've mastered all that, there is no more suffering and struggling with duality. We don't need to caught up with pain and pleasure and then hot and then cold. So technically there are techniques that help with that. But I think all in all, when you get this experience, you do learn how to not get so caught up with these huge swings of physical things within your body. The physical swings will no longer be there when your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system is nicely balanced, but also the painful emotional responses, those swings will dissipate, and you're no longer so caught up with in yourself, with that ego response that creates further sufferings. So that's just from that little point. Now, another point of view, they go on, like I said, about these chakra points and accessing them so that we can be a fuller expression of ourselves, and that each one of these not only will be representing certain parts of our consciousness. Yes, you can sweep. Sorry, friend outside. But also, they are windows to shifting perspective. But that is another story. Anyway, or our perception of reality. And we wish all of that to clarify. So when we're no longer so caught up anymore in physical patterning, it gives us access to learn how that same approach, those same tools we draw into, we can use that to no longer get caught up with the mental patterning and the emotional responses, and how that disrupts the clarity of seeing and knowing reality. Yeah. Okay. So when looking and seeing when someone's in pain, there are similar presentations in that